Warm greetings, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Brooks Barrett, the UCC's Minister for Environmental Justice. We have a full agenda for today, so we're going to jump right into it. The plan is to begin with a prayer from the Reverend Jerry Locula, to then hear from Abigail Cipriani from our office in DC about the current advocacy landscape, to do some Q&A with Abigail, and then we're going to hear from 5 different speakers who will speak about how our local churches are getting involved in federal level advocacy. For the final portion of our call, we'll then consider what's next for us. For 2024, our assembly gatherings had adopted 3 proposals rooted in general sin resolutions for how we would focus ourselves. And now we'll consider how we can best answer our collective calling moving forward. This is important work we're doing today. Jerry, can you ground and center us in prayer?
Thank you very much, Reverend Dr. Brooks, and good afternoon from Rochester, Minnesota to all of you. In times like these, where should we turn to? We turn to God. So this time, let us all unite our hearts together in prayer. Let us pray. To you, the Most High, your people whom you have called one by one and collectively to steward your beautiful creation, we gather in your name. We have gathered to honor the tears of the earth because of our actions. We have gathered that you, O Lord, will show us the way to heal the earth. Empower us, O God, to treat the earth with justice and fairness and love for our neighbors. There are millions that are still in denial of a broken climate, despite the physical manifestation of a struggling earth. O God, open their eyes, O Lord, for them to see the reality. Today, the Inflation Reduction Act that spoke to the consciousness of towns and cities and institutions, but particularly Washington, for a CO2 emissions reduction, that act is threatened right now. O God, may you bring unity that boldly strengthens climate legislations. Help us, O Lord, that we as a local church will exercise our prophetic voices so that at the end, generations hereafter will inherit a beautiful world because you told us to do so. Let all of creation rejoice. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Jerry, for that beautiful prayer. Truly, the tears of the earth are calling us to prophetic ministry here today. We will now turn towards our guest speaker for today, the first of many speakers. Abigail spoke to us last, right after the election. So, wow, so much has changed over these past 4 months. So, Abigail, let's turn right to it. Give us a breakdown of where things are at and what's needed.
Yeah, sure. So I'm first going to just start with a general update on what is happening here in DC and with our federal government that's relevant to climate action. And then I'm going to update you on the DC office's great work with Brooks and with all of you on protecting our clean energy programs in the Inflation Reduction Act in support of the UCC's long-term goal as articulated by General Synod for the US to be carbon neutral by 2040. So the government is currently headed into a shutdown if the government does not pass a 2025 budget by March 14th that funds government programs for the rest of the year. And a shutdown basically allows the Office of Management and Budget to designate certain parts of the government as essential and furlough the rest of government staff. So we expect agencies like the EPA to almost completely shutter their doors if this happens because of this administration's current impulse to destroy government functioning, as we've seen over the last few months. Currently, the most likely way that we avoid a government shutdown and keep our important agency doors open is to pass a long-term temporary budget extension, which basically funds the government at current levels through September 30th. But even if this budget was passed, President Trump would likely still continue to withhold federal funding, as we have seen, and we've already seen significant staff cuts at the EPA and NOAA, including the closure of the EPA's Environmental Justice Office. So we expect that trend to unfortunately continue. I'm going to be giving a little bit of a link at the end towards our Project 2025 resource, because I think that we have been tracking a lot of the administration's actions and how that almost directly maps onto their plan as laid out in Project 2025 from last year. So Congress is also still working on the budget reconciliation process, which is where we have been able to work with all of you most when it comes to climate action. So I wanted to give you an update on that process. Just to review, Congress basically gets to pass a supplemental funding bill each fiscal year through what is called budget reconciliation. And the advantage of this is that the Senate gets to skip the filibuster. This bill would only have to pass in the Senate by a simple majority. They wouldn't have to get to 60 votes. So currently, Republicans that are in charge of both the House and the Senate are using this process to pass a bill, or hopefully pass a bill, they're working on it, that would roll back the Inflation Reduction Act. And the unfortunate part is the Inflation Reduction Act made a significant step towards the UCC's goal of carbon neutrality because it incentivized clean energy development, both through tax credits as well as incentivizing energy efficiency upgrades. So this is upgrading your stove at home, upgrading your refrigerator, buying an electric vehicle. But this also created a program called Direct Pay, which allowed churches and other nonprofits to apply for a 30% tax credit to get solar upgrades. So unfortunately, the rollback of this Inflation Reduction Act would end up directly impacting not only all of our members who are trying to take advantage of those individual tax credits, but it would also impact churches that may want to save money on their electricity by moving to solar. So we have partnered with Brooks through the Environmental Justice Ministries to really hit Congress hard on the impact of passing a bill that would roll back the Inflation Reduction Act. And they're hoping to roll back the Inflation Reduction Act because then they can save money and then spend that money on tax cuts for the ultra wealthy and billionaires. So we're really trying to hit hard how much the rollback of the IRA is going to specifically impact churches and church members. And so we've done that in a number of ways. We have an action alert up that I'll put in the chat in just a few minutes that allows you to email or call your members of Congress asking them to protect clean energy tax credits. We've also worked with some of you through the Have a Heart for Climate action on Valentine's Day to set up in-district meetings with members of Congress, asking them directly to write a Dear Colleague letter in support of protecting these tax credits. And then most recently, we worked with the Cornerstone Fund, which is a UCC lender that gives loans to churches, to write a letter to the House Ways and Means Committee, as well as the Senate Finance Committee, expressing their support for the direct pay program and specifically how they would be impacted as a lender and the churches under them would be impacted if the direct pay program for solar goes away. So right now, the House Ways and Means Committee and the Senate Committee on Finance are in charge of deciding whether these tax credits survive and whether the Inflation Reduction Act stands tall. And so the timing that we had for all of the work that we've done is honestly perfect, because in the next few weeks, leadership of these two committees will be thinking about what to cut, what to keep, and this will be part of the conversation. So I just want to first thank everyone who has already been involved in the work that we did to protect clean energy tax credits. I want to thank everyone who's part of the climate affiliate programs that are going to be doing some long-term work on this that I know a few other speakers will be speaking to as well. Because the timing and the relevance of the work that you're doing right now is so incredible. So I just want to say congratulations. Now is the time to be doing this work, and it's really impactful work. But we basically have, as far as we know, we have no indication that these programs are going to be cut anytime soon. And so we have the next few months to continue the conversation with our members of Congress, to continue to try to get them to protect these clean energy tax credits, and to continue to communicate why we need these clean energy tax credits as a religious community. So I'll stop there and I'll let folks ask any questions they might have.
Thank you, Abigail. Yep, and we'll take questions now. Great. Rob, is that a question or simply way to go, Abigail? Or thank you, Abigail.
Thumbs
Great.
up for Abigail.
Thanks, Rob. And I'm going to put my email in the chat. So if anyone has any other questions that come up.
I see that Matt has a question.
Oh,
Yeah, could you distinguish between what's possible that Trump can do unilaterally with cuts versus what might happen in committees on budget?
yeah. So it's, as we've seen, it's gotten pretty confusing because this president doesn't necessarily follow the law. So what the law says is that Congress has the power of the purse, which means that if Congress passes a law that says you need to spend this amount of money on a tax credit, the president can't just stop implementing that program that provided that tax credit. That's not only against the Constitution, but it's against the Impoundment Act, which basically is the act that says that Congress has the power of the purse. So because of that, when it comes to rolling back clean energy tax credits, that is 100% on Congress to do. The president cannot say, you know what, we're going to stop implementing the direct pay program. Unfortunately, this has gotten confused because he has, in other instances, paused funding when he's actually not supposed to be pausing that funding. The federal funding freeze is an example. That was, as we recently saw, a judge put an injunction on that. And I think that there is a larger conversation to be had about, what happens when an administration refuses to comply with judicial orders. And so that, I will say that is a bit of a wild card. The one thing is President Trump right now is letting Congress do its thing because Congress is controlled by Republicans. And so because it's controlled by Republicans, the idea around the budget reconciliation bill is it's a lot easier to just cut funding in line with the law through passing a bill than to just stop implementing funding and then risk another court case, right? So where he can, which is mainly in the tax realm, he's letting Congress, provide massive $4.5 trillion of tax cuts for the ultra rich and also cutting our clean energy, or considering cutting our clean energy tax credits. So right now he's letting Congress do its thing. I cannot guarantee that the tax credits issue will always be under Congress just because Trump might try to roll back a program or try to stop funding a program. But I will say that I think the courts, particularly given the precedent on the federal funding freeze, will, quickly put an injunction on that. So I just say if we were following the law says that Congress and only Congress has the power to appropriate funds. Once those funds are appropriated, it is the executive's duty to take those programs and spend that money. And if the executive doesn't, as we have seen, he'll be caught up in legal issues. And the courts have upheld that.
Great, thanks. And I see William or Bill has a question.
Yes, thank you, Abigail, for your work. Will you be putting up in the chat the link to the action alert that you mentioned earlier?
Yes, I'm going to put that in the chat. To save time, I didn't want to do it while I was speaking, but I'll put it in the chat right now.
Linda has a question.
Linda, you're muted. Go ahead.
There. I was poking the wrong button. So I would also hope that we can have in the chat information about how we can apply for this solar 30% reduction on solar through the Inflation Reduction Act, or a way to contact them, and also information about the Cornerstone Fund, because those are new to me ideas that these are available.
Yeah, so the Cornerstone Fund will actually help you with also like getting a loan for the other part of paying for it so that churches don't have to foot the bill immediately. So I think what's better is to put you in contact with Rebecca Pereira, who is the
Okay.
person that mainly has been helping churches that are interested with this. So I'm going to put her email in the chat.
All right, great. Thank you.
And then I'm also putting in the chat the UCC resource for going solar. All right. And you'll find information too about Cornerstone. Did I see another hand raised? I thought we have time for one last question. I thought I saw one hand raised. Mary, go ahead. Yeah.
So this is kind of tangential to that, but so for the non-elected Department of Energy, whatever, the Doge, there's been a lot of lawsuits already launched. Are you seeing that success with those? Or what's your opinion as to whether those can be successful? Because obviously it's not Congress.
Right. Yeah. So that's the thing. So the executive does have the power to stand up new agencies, right? And so, standing up Doge is within their power. Where Doge is violating the Constitution is with regards to Elon Musk's access to personal and private data, as well as there is their attempt to pause funding that has already been appropriated. So, for example, anything that was appropriated in fiscal year of 2024, which ended last October, right? That money had to be spent and has to be spent by agencies. So when President Trump is putting a federal funding freeze for a certain program, or is pausing funding for an office, or is closing an office, for example, like the Environmental Justice Office with the EPA, that money, if they had money that they did not spend, it still needs to be spent. And if an office doesn't exist, they can't spend that money. So that type of thing is where the courts are winning, and the injunctions are holding, because that is a direct, like, constitutional issue, and it's very clear both in the Constitution and in the Impoundment Act that the president doesn't have authority to do that. I will say, because we have a Congress that in some ways is trying to enable the majority is trying to enable a lot of what President Trump and Doge is doing, it is making it so that there are other paths for them to cut that funding, right? They can pass a bill in Congress to cut the same amounts of funding as what we've seen them try to do through executive action, even if that is not the proper path. But they would have to go up against the filibuster unless it was part of this reconciliation bill. And they'd have to get everyone to agree. And even in the House, there's a very, very slim majority for Republicans right now. It's just normally every bill is passed by only like 1 to 2 Republican members, if that. So I think the opportunities and where I see hope is that when it comes to our work on clean energy tax credits, as I said in another meeting, 80% of the clean energy tax credit funds have gone to Republican-controlled districts. So what that means is Republican representatives and senators. Here, I'm sending Rebecca's email address right here. All right. Republican senators and Republican representatives feel the need to keep the programs alive enough so that their constituents don't notice that they've cut a program that they benefited from. And that's why when we're thinking about the communication that we have to members of Congress, that's why it's really important to speak to Republicans specifically, because first, their districts have benefited the most. And also, when it comes to budget reconciliation, no Democrat will be voting for that bill. It's only a Republican supported bill. So it's really only Republicans that we should be focusing on. And I think there's a lot of hope there, because there is a lot of Republicans that are in swing districts right now that need to have constituents vote for them in the upcoming election for them to win again. And we have seen in the past that there is about 8 to 18 Republicans in both the House and Senate that are a little hesitant to cut clean energy tax credits. And I'm happy to put the link in the chat, but there's basically a letter that House Republicans sent last year asking when they're considering rolling back the IRA to keep some of the clean energy tax credits. And there was a hearing recently that a number of Republicans testified before and said that they wanted to keep some of the clean energy tax credits. When the House and the Senate circulated what they wanted to cut from the budget to be able to pay for these tax cuts, when they listed the clean energy tax credits, they put in parentheses, if politically possible. And so every other cut, they didn't write if politically possible. So I think there's a lot of hope when it comes to fighting to protect these tax credits because of all of these different signs that we're getting from Congress that show us that Republicans aren't necessarily going to support a bill that cuts clean energy tax credit programs. So,
great. Thank you, Abigail. We now have to move to the next portion of our program, and we are going to hear directly from some people who are involved in our Valentine's Day action. And so we'll get started with Lynn and Jen Hagedorn. Go ahead, Lynn and Jen.
Great. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here with all of you today. Following the guidance of Abigail and Brooks, Spirit of Peace organized a contingent of 6 people, ages 1 to 86, to meet with Representative Kim Schreier. We were welcomed into the office early and shared about 40 minutes together, expressing our concerns for the future of our planet and all who call her home. Personal stories grounded our presentation. The entire congregation was invited into this event with opportunities to create Valentines, which we delivered on that day. And we asked for their prayers during our meeting. For half of our group, this was the first time participating in a face-to-face with a representative from Kim Schreier's office.
Next, we used that momentum and advocated here at our state capitol in Olympia. We participated in a statewide interfaith advocacy day with Faith Action Network. And there again, we had 8 Spirit of Peace folks, and half of those 4, it was their very first time advocating at the state office. And I think this really demonstrates the momentum and the enthusiasm that once folks have this experience, whether directly or feeling like they're a part of a congregation that's doing this, it, especially in these times, is such spiritual nourishment. So we've been hearing more and more people lifting up in the prayers that they're calling representatives, including it in our liturgy. It feels like the congregation is truly finding a lot of hope through these processes, and it wouldn't be possible without the UCC offering this like guidance, moral call, the conviction, and hope. Abigail, I always feel so hopeful after I hear you speak, so that is really something, and we're incredibly grateful for the support that we've received.
And just finally, I think our representatives in Congress really need to know now more than ever that we have their backs, and we applaud their courage in standing up against this revolution that's been started for the rich and powerful. Without our voices, they will not have what they need to really move forward and make sure that our voices are also heard in Congress. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you so much to Lynn and Jen for that report. And I put in the chat a link to the article there. You can see a picture of their group. And we'll turn now to Jim Deachin, who will talk about their visit in Lansing, Michigan.
Yeah, thanks, Brooke, and thanks, Abigail. Well, we had, first of all, Edgewood United Church. We're a church of about 350 members. We are right, our Lansing, Michigan is the state capital. It's also the home of several large General Motors factories that are converting to electric vehicles, as well as Michigan State University. So there's a lot of action here. and we met with two representatives on February 14th. We first went to Representative Tom Barrett's office. He is a Republican, just elected. Our district is very much a purple district that switches back and forth between Republicans and Democrats. And we had about 6 people went and met with him. We brought a box of chocolate Valentine's Day candy, which his staff seemed to appreciate. And we had a great conversation. We expected him to be somewhat resistant to the idea. In fact, they mentioned that Congressman Barrett has been, before he became a congressman, he was a state representative, and he had supported solar energy bills. So we had a very positive meeting, surprisingly positive meeting, and he was very receptive. And we then, later that day, we met with the staff of Elizabeth Slotkin. She's our newly elected Democratic senator here. And she was that staff is wholeheartedly supportive of what we're trying to do. And then I will mention the following day, a group of us went to a conference, really a rally in Detroit from Michigan Climate Action. There were probably about 25 different groups lobbying for preserving the tax credits and various other things. And that was, about 350, 400 people were at that. So there's a lot of energy, a lot of concern here. And then on the following Sunday, we met with, I talked to our whole congregation about what we had done. People were very energized. Several people stood up and clapped. I think there was great relief that finally people are doing something and not just, rolling over. So it was very positive. And I think it also has energized other members of our church to try to set up similar meetings with our congregational people. So Abigail, I appreciate all of the guidance you gave us. And I would encourage everyone to try to do this in your own districts. I think it is very valuable.
Thanks, Jim. I love the image of a standing applause there. Terrific. And now we will turn to Mary for our final testimony about the Valentine's Day action.
Well, hello to all of you. My name is Mary Vanna Gregory. I'm a member of the Green Team at Niles Discovery Church in Fremont, California. As part of the UCC Have a Heart for Climate Justice campaign, several members of our Green Team had a Zoom meeting with Kevin Fox, a climate policy expert for Rocana, who is the U.S. representative for the 17th District of California, the district where our church is located. Like all of you, I'm extremely concerned about the climate crisis facing our world. And with Trump at the helm of our country, what progress we had been making is fast dissolving. The current situation makes it easy to become depressed, and depression often can have a paralyzing effect on our efforts to take action. We lose the belief in our power to fight back, but fight back we must. For me, one of the most important aspects of this meeting was having an actual conversation with a person who is an expert in climate issues and who has current knowledge of what is happening with our laws. I found it reassuring as he calmly and patiently listened to our questions and provided new insights and information. In addition to our questions about national concerns, we asked about a local issue in Newark, California. The Newark City Council is considering approval of a massive retail and residential development in wetlands under its jurisdiction. Newark is in Rose District. Our Green Team leader, who is active in opposing the approval, has sent information that she has to Roe, who is also an advocate for wetland preservation. I am grateful to UCC for putting together a plan for us to contact our representatives as part of their Have a Heart for Climate Justice campaign. It was a positive learning experience for me. Our voices will have much more volume as more and more people engage with members of Congress. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Mary. So exciting to hear about these experiences that people have had in visiting the congressional district offices. And now we are going to turn towards Rob Graybill, who's going to talk about a program that will enable us to make this an ongoing part of our work and ministry. And so, Rob, I turn it over to you.
Thank you, Brooks. If you've been reading The Pollinator, which I certainly hope you all have, you will know that we are embarking on a Climate Hope affiliate program. And there are folks in this webinar who are members of our first 4 nascent Climate Hope affiliates, Fremont, California, Allentown, Pennsylvania. We also have Concord, New Hampshire, and Framingham, Mass. And I'm in the boiler room with Brooks and Sue Muller and Mike Collins working on this, and I'm emerging with a story of self because we have adopted transformative advocacy, which is the form of advocacy that Sam Daly Harris, a legendarily successful organizer, has advocated. And I'm going to start by letting you know that for me personally, transformative advocacy has transformed me. Like all of you, I get up in the morning and dread seeing what's in the news. Yesterday, it was multiple thousands of veterans threatened with layoffs. Today, it was hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian refugees being threatened with deportation, and we don't know what's going to be there tomorrow. But I have been able to push back on my sense of hopelessness by engaging in this work, because it is substantive work and it is transformative work. And it can transform not just individuals, but it can transform communities. It can transform local church green teams. It's going to transform yours, Mary. And it's in the process of transforming yours, Rick. And it gives us direction. It gives us hope. It gives us tools. So I want to give you the brief mission statement of Climate Hope affiliates. This is what I'm going to say to somebody if I get them in the elevator. I'm going to gently look into their eyes, and I'm going to say that the prophetic calling of Climate Hope affiliates is to empower people of faith and conscience to address the interconnected crises of climate change and social injustice. Please don't feel you have to write that down. It just magically appeared in the chat. The prophetic calling of Climate Hope affiliates is to empower people of faith and conscience to address the interconnected crises of climate change and societal injustice. This is the answer to Reverend Jerry's prayers for the continuation and safety of the IRA. This is what Abigail meant when she said there's still time to do something. We have months ahead of us to get a hold of Congress people and advocate for the continuation of the IRA. And what we're doing is developing ongoing relationships with members of Congress, also with local media and with members of the broader community. And this is an inclusive effort. It starts with church. It's rooted in the church, because this is, as Jim Antal will tell you every time he grabs you by the lapels, this is the work of the church. And yet it is inclusive. We are extending our reach beyond the church walls, and we are inviting climate activists of every shape and size to be part of us. We also are filling a vacuum. Many of you are aware that Interfaith Power and Light on a national basis is no longer functioning. And they were doing what we now can step in and do. Specifically, advocacy on a scale with focus on our individual Congress people. our immediate focus is the defense of the IRA, but we also are going to be having a longer term focus, and anything that will help us marry climate and environmental justice, that's what we're about. So contact Brooks about Climate Hope Affiliates and have a great day.
Thank you, Rob, so much. We'll put in a link for people to indicate interest in that program. And now we're going to turn to Rick Gould, the Reverend Rick Gould, who will talk about where our first affiliate is being launched in Allentown. And so, Rick, take it away.
Hi, I'm Reverend Rick Gould. I'm a retired UCC pastor, and I'm currently a member of St. John's United Church of Christ in Allentown, which is downtown. We're in the Pennsylvania 7th Congressional District, the swingiest district in the swingiest state. I got involved in this program through Brooks, but let me tell you a little bit about my background. I was a chemistry major way back when in college, before I went to seminary. So I was aware about the greenhouse gas effect of carbon dioxide long ago, but it wasn't a pressing issue in my first congregation in Western Pennsylvania, where we were dealing with deindustrialization, and it wasn't a pressing issue in my second congregation where we were dealing with the struggles financially for people who had tremendous medical debts. But now it is a pressing issue. What happened was I got into an argument on Twitter, with a climate denier. And in the back and forth, he ended with, well, churches do a lot of talking, but do they do anything? And I thought to myself, point taken. So I went to my consistory and said, let's do something. They authorized a green team. I got some folks together and I got in touch with Brooks, and we talked to him about the creation justice church process, and we've been working on that. And out of that, Brooks invited me to this Zoom meeting with Sam Daly Harris, who talked about his model for doing this. And I said, yeah, let's do that. And so I got in touch with a few folks through my social media networking, and our green team and another church. And so far we've gotten on board 12 people, but we're still working on it for our launch party next Saturday, which we're really looking forward to. This has been something that's become very deep on my heart. And I like the idea that this is a way of combating the hopelessness that we feel by engaging in citizen activism on behalf of a major global issue. And getting a lot of support from our congregation and from our fellow church around in the neighborhood. We're looking forward to having Brooks lead the presentation next Saturday. Oh, and thank you for the shout out in the pollinator.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you. It has been truly just an honor to be with you all as you launched our first affiliate in Allentown. And so it's been exciting to witness and see the spirit and energy in your community.